I want to talk to you today not about food. So this is my other love, which I have been teaching for about 15 years. Who here is also interested in dog training or dog behaviour, or even just knowing why their dog does the things it does? Yes, probably most people in the room. So I'm now going to have to stand here like all the other speakers so that this will work. So down. So for me, this is another lens. What I'm going to introduce you to today is another lens to look at dog behaviour. Okay, it's one that actually you are all quite familiar with, but you are using the lens currently to look at something else. So let me get started. So we're going to start with this lovely slide. So this is the general consensus lens that we look at dog behaviour through. So who can give me some names of dog books that are sitting on their shelf? I'll start with one. Think Dog. I'll make them up maybe. Anyone come up with another one that's connected with their brain? And anyone? Pardon?
Fired Up, Frantic and Freaked Out.
Well, that sounds like it's a lot to do with mental balance, doesn't it? Yeah. So a lot of it's to do with the mind, the brain, the science of the neuro pathways. Even if we are talking about pain in dogs and how that relates to behaviour, most of the time we're attributing that to what it does to the mind. So we then can think about biome. And when we talk about biome and how that relates to behaviour, we are still lending ourselves to the lens of the neuro pathways and how the biome influences things like serotonin, dopamine, and the neuro pathways that reach the dog's brain and thus affect behaviour. Now, none of that's wrong. But there is another lens, and I call it the other half of dog training because the majority of us are completely overlooking at it, and it is so powerful. And I've been using it for the last 15 years on my retreats, alongside compassionate ways that we look at this lens. So if they're compassionate, I'm pro it. And when you put the two together is when you get really, really dramatic results. So, and a very happy dog, which is obviously what we want, happy, calm, loved dogs. So, if it's not behaviour, it's balance, what is it that they're balancing? So the answer is that they are balancing their vital life force energy. Now, my course is called Canine Flow, so I call it the vital life force flow. So we know about this. We call it Chi in TCM. We call it Prana in Ayurvedic medicine. We call it actually just vital life force, I think, in homeopathy, isn't it? It's just called the vital life force. And what is happening is we are utilising this flow of energy through the dog to support the imbalances of energies in our dog that have manifested into ailments. Okay, and we all know this. I don't think there's anyone in the room here who doesn't understand that, because that's probably how you got here, is through a therapy or understanding that even food relates to ailments. So, because food has its own vibrational state as well, so that will be having an influence on the vital life force flow as well. So we're already utilising vital life force flow when we're dealing with our dog's ailments. And how many people here, that we'll see how many there are, but it's usually quite a lot, that their dog has an ailment of some kind. They work with somebody like Brendan or Victoria or Nick or another lovely therapist that doesn't need to be a vet, and because the ailment shifted, that a behaviour shifted too. How many people have had that happen? Quite a few, lots of hands going up now. So we get that and we go, oh, what a coincidence. That's awesome. I'm so glad that happened. And that happens a lot. So we didn't go to the therapist because we wanted support with the behaviour. We went to the therapist because we wanted support with the ailment. Okay? But the behaviour shifted because you were working with the vital life force flow. So what I do is I flip that and I start with the behaviour and the vital life force flow. Then, if you're really good at Canine Flow, who here's been on my retreat about 4 times? Philippa's somewhere in there. Yeah. the ailments don't happen because your dog is giving you a message in their behaviour that something needs to shift in their vital life force flow. And we are still looking at their mind majority of the time. So we need to unite those two lenses. What I'm effectively asking you to do as human beings is unite the heart and the mind together. Because we have focused on the mind for far too long. We've over-intellectualized life. I mean, I'm a geek out on nutrition as anyone, going into all the left brain stuff. But we need to unite the two hemispheres of our mind. We need to be uniting our heart with our mind as well now. And we can do that. Our dogs, I believe, are here to actually show us how to do that. And we have kind of been missing it. So if we go down. Okay, so these were some of the teachings that led me to start talking about this in behaviour. Okay, so I started running my retreats over 20 years ago now. And gradually I've accumulated lots of stories and seen lots of dogs transform. And I've done lots of rabbit hole deep dives into why it might be that vital life force flow is working for our dogs the way it does for behaviour. So dogs are magnetic by nature. So this is how I see a dog now. I totally get the brain side as well, but I'm uniting it. So this is how I see the dog. Any dog that I see, I look at them now and I make myself do it because we've all been so trained to use this kind of idea that they have using their mind, that you make yourself see them as a walking, moving magnetic field, because that is basically what they are. They have the biggest heart per body mass of any creature walking planet Earth. The biggest heart per body mass. So bigger heart per body mass than your cat and your horse, and you feel connected to those creatures as well. But the dog is the most magnetic creature you will ever meet. And so they are the creature that has the most access to your own vital life force flow. And how cool is that? No wonder we connect so well with them. And they are picking up everything about us all the time. Most of the time, people say, oh, I'm involved in the behaviour, it's me, really. That's kind of a blame game. It's not. You become the same. You're actually the same. And it's your subconscious, the stuff that you're not thinking about on a conscious daily basis, is what's feeding the dog. So we're here on planet Earth to make a difference. Every single one of you is in the room here because you want to make a difference to dogs. But we are here for ourselves as well, because you're growing and evolving and learning. And we're here to make changes. We are here to make changes. You're here for a reason. Not just at the expo, I mean in general, on Earth, So you are part of nature. I'm definitely going to go over at this rate. So you're part of nature, okay? So what I call the 1.618 state, this comes from a tremendous set of published science that the Institute of Heart Math published. Don't know the dates offhand, but in the last kind of 10 years or so. Brilliant published studies. And what they have shown is that they can measure emotions in the vital life force flow. So emotions become a set of measurable numbers, and they use a piece of equipment which at the moment they say they can measure 3 foot away from the body, but they say if they had better equipment that it probably would be further. So your dog is constantly picking up your subconscious emotions. You are picking up theirs as well. So what they found with these frequencies is they were consistent. So if people felt grief, there was a consistent number. If people felt joy, there was a consistent number. And what they found with the consistent number of love, and I don't mean romantic love, I mean, let's just take the word love for now. So what they found with people feeling love for something is that it was 1.618. Now, who, apart from those that have been on my retreat or my course, knows what 1.618 might be?
B.
Yes, it's pi. And pi is also the golden mean. It is also like you see the flower of life on the Oxypet bottles. So this is the pattern of nature, okay? And maths is not woo-woo. It either adds up or it doesn't. And with pi, it does. So there are people like that tremendous David Wilcock, who some of you who are quite spiritual might know, who's recently died, so I just want to honour him as well. He was part of my teaching, learning about sacred geometry. And sacred geometry makes up our entire world. There is nothing that isn't related to this 1.618 state. And this is almost like, this state of love is what, when we do Canine Flow, is what we're putting into the dog. And I don't know, like, you all love your dogs mentally, but we put this into them using the Fibonacci spiral. Now, I did T-Touch training that Ricky mentioned earlier. Rachel knows how long ago it was, probably 25 years ago now. What do you think, Rachel? Something
makes me feel old.
makes us both feel old. It was a long time ago, and I now believe that the T-Touch, what they call the T-Touch circle, is linked in with the Fibonacci. I think it's like the beginning of this, because when we do our spirals, they make such a difference to dogs. So yeah, we utilise this within our training with our dogs, with our Canine Flow work. So also attraction and the 3-step flow. So moving on to this. So with magnetism comes attraction, of course. So when I see dogs as this moving ball of energy, what I'm seeing, if there were, say, 2 dogs and they were walking towards each other, I'm seeing 2 magnets with north and south polarities that want to meet each other. So this is why it's so hard. We have to really work with our dogs on these kinds of behaviours where they want to go and meet other dogs, or anyone, really. And of course, when we come home from being out somewhere, they want to unite with our magnetic field. So the 2 magnets are coming together. Ours is weaker because we don't have the biggest heart mass in the same way. But we're happy for them to do it then. Now the dog, as I said, we're uniting the other lens with this lens, but the dog is not, in my opinion, thinking, oh, I must go and say hi to Mum, otherwise she's going to think that I'm not keen on her anymore. He just feels the magnetic attraction, and it's such a life force energy that this is then what occurs. So obviously, I have an online course and retreats that you can come on, so this will probably be sparking like, oh my God, what about this? And I get that, and I can't fit it all into this short talk. But I can talk about all sorts of behaviours when you're on the course and explain how they relate to magnetic flow. But that's one example. Another one is not my favourite thing, but the whole can he say hello thing. Who likes the can he say hello? No one. Well, one hand went up. So I'm not a massive fan on that, because I feel like when 2 magnets are trying to unite, what they're going to do is they're going to try and get their polarities to match. And if your dog is not resilient to that, it will mean that they are not happy about that, and they will have a charge of energy come in them that they need to ground. And this is what's happening when we have 2 dogs going together for the say hello. We have so many different influences influencing the north and south polarity of their magnetic field that it can turn into things that we don't necessarily want to see in our dogs. So this 3-step flow is really key in Canine Flow. And what it is, it's about the frequencies that are going into your dog, however that might be, food being one of them. But what is creating their vital life force flow and their frequencies, okay? What we don't do with that is say, well, they were born under a certain astrological sign or whatever it might be, so they can only ever be a Leo dog or whatever, because all vital life force flow can shift and change. Otherwise, homeopathy wouldn't work. So nothing has to be static and stay the same. Same with the vital life force flow, the magnetic energy, and thus the behaviour of the dog. So what is going in? We look at that. Then we look at the dog as a vessel. So we say, how resilient to flow, or the charges that build up from the flow, from the magnetism, how resilient is the dog? And that's where we get things like your pain being a problem for them, which obviously is not very nice anyway, but yeah, it influences the behaviour because the vessel. So that's where we get things like T-touch coming in, freeing up, or Riquet's work, freeing up the fascia. The dog's vessel is better able to cope with the things that are going in, frequency-wise. Now, for me, that's terrific, and we all pretty much do learn these kind of vessel therapies at some point, but we can then forget and think, oh, the dog's okay now. We haven't looked at what's going in, and it may well be that their vessel can cope, but more and more might go in, frequency-wise. So we always, to me, need to be looking at the three-step flow. So also then, we want to be looking at what I call the grounding, which is where they release frequencies, where their magnetic charge is allowed to complete its earthing and complete its grounding back to earth. So this is different to when you absorb energies from the earth and they shift you. That helps the vessel, and that is something we need to be doing more with our dog, especially if we happen to live in a flat or we don't have access to a garden. Your dog needs to be out more and more. What I'm talking about with the grounding is about frequencies coming out and going down to planet Earth again. So the cycle starts effortlessly without getting stuck in the body, becoming somatic and becoming that ailment. So that's the three-step flow. So a quick whistle stop on this. So we can understand dog behaviour in a new lens. When we understand the vital life force flow, we can transform dog behaviour. We can also connect to the bigger picture. What I found, one of my lovely practitioners in Wales, Val, she worked with a little Jack Russell and its family. And what she found is she was worried because it was almost like the mum of the family didn't really want her to be there, or hadn't connected with the dog. And she'd been in a few times and she'd worked with the dog. And she sort of said to me, I don't know if I'm making any difference. I said, it's almost like when we learned T-touch, we used to learn to pause. And it's sometimes the pause is the bit you need, waiting for the energies to settle and to reframe themselves. And that's what she did. And then went back, I think, 3 weeks later. And the whole situation in the house had changed. She said it was like when she walked in the garden gate, it was light. It was more 1.618 than she'd ever seen it. So you see the bigger picture, you make shifts and changes. There's been so many studies that shows things like when you meditate, or a group of people meditate, they affect other people. So these energy shifts are not just static for that dog or for that one guardian. They ripple out. Again, it's about our place here. It's about our place on planet Earth. Okay, so I want to, because I run courses, and these are two ladies who came on the course. One had a dog called Will, and one had a lovely dog called Dixie. Now, I'm going to do my best. I've never done this before in a presentation, so hopefully they won't both play at the same time. So we will try.
He's chilled out. He's becoming chilled outside, and today was a real breakthrough. We've got visitors here, so we did sort of a touristy day, which I absolutely dread because Will's issues are mainly on the road and where there are people and dogs. And there were no cars for him to react to where we were, but there were lots of dogs walking around. He didn't react to one. So I'm really feeling chuffed about how things are going.
Yeah, that's really...
3 weeks into the course. And she was so worried when she started, Jen, bless her. She has a husband who she has to look after as well. And then she'd got a collie dog, and you can imagine didn't have always the time. And anyway, yeah, amazing. Amanda was on that course. Where's my Amanda? Do you remember, Will? You've got to say yes now, obviously. Let's hear, same course, same 3 weeks in, and Catherine had been doing lots of these Fibonacci 1.618 creating spirals.
I've been doing them every day, but just for probably 5 to 10 minutes. As with Jen, I'm sure that Dixie has improved even since the start of the course, but since we've been doing the spirals, because she's massively reactive. And now she'll just do a couple of barks and she's done. She's even been lying out in the garden in the sun, not barking at horses and tractors going past. She's been great. And if I can get her, you can see her, just hopefully there, just fast asleep. Which usually, if I'm talking to people, she'll just be bark, 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 bark. So I'm really pleased with how it's going. Yes, it's been really great. And I think she is as well. Yeah.
Okay, my time is plodding on. So there's two lovely dogs have been supported by uniting the heart and the mind there. Both those women had kind of, it's basically my life, that everyone I work with seems to come to me having tried everything. Doesn't matter whether they've come for the food consultation or whether they come for Canine Flow. So what I want to say is what we're talking about here when we talk about magnetism, we're talking about emotions. So relating this to the Institute of Heart Math Studies as well, our electromagnetic field is really called the magneto-electric field. Researchers such as Michael Tellinger, one of the world's top stone circle researchers, has shown that these 1.618 figures and numbers also linked to all the ancient sites as well. So, and he says that really the human being is magneto-electric, and obviously that means the dog will be, given that they have the biggest heart per body mass. So I want to just say to you, just while I've got a few minutes left, that what we're dealing here is that emotions are energy, and I've taught this for a long time, but I've never stood honest. I mean, I haven't even come to the expo and talking about this yet. But so here I am, and I want to put it out there that I'm happy to talk at any behaviour conference going about this, because we talk a lot about emotions, and we don't even start with what they even are. Yeah, so let's start with what they are before we then talk about how we're going to change them. So that's what I would really like to bring to the table with that. I've already talked about the link with our subconscious. You've got to remember that the dog reacts with your subconscious. We need to lose blame and shame and judgment on ourselves. That is not helpful. So with your subconscious, not your conscious decisions. So I just want to also, for the final slide, examples of flow you already know, but you don't even realize it. Okay, so do you remember the study about dogs spin and turn? Who remembers that study about magnetic north? Dogs spin and turn, and they end up doing their stool aligned with magnetic north. So this was laughed at quite a bit. I don't think those at Bristol Uni that did it were expecting that, but they didn't actually have like an answer for why, did they? They just said, this is overwhelmingly compelling that this is what they're doing. Now you know that the dog is acting on their magnetic field. It makes total sense that they would align their magnetic field before they did that. Everything would be easier. Think of all that lovely fascia in the spine that we saw earlier. Everything would be happening in a fast flowing time period if they would align to magnetic north. So, another one where the researchers found that African painted dogs always sneeze before a hunt. Who remembers that? Do you remember that one? The African painted dogs always sneezing before a hunt. So that was quite a big study as well. And again, they didn't really know why. And they attributed it possibly to communication. Now, for me, what I think they're doing is they're clearing their vomeral nasal organ, their V&O. Because, to me, what the last 15 years has led me to see is that the vomeral nasal organ is a frequency detector. Okay? Scent is a frequency anyway. Jim Al-Khalili has shown that repetitively in all his quantum biology published papers. So scent isn't just a static molecule that's going into the brain and being read that way from memory. It is a frequency anyway. But yeah, so they're clearing so they can communicate better. They can pick up on the emotions of the other dogs when they're in the hunt, and that helps them communicate with each other. Very similar also with the prey capture, which we don't have time to go into now, because I just want to give you the message about enrichment, because this is a really lovely reframe. And I call reframe with this, but actually it's not actually about reframing, it's about remembering the ancient wisdom of who we truly are within our ways of being with dogs. So enrichment. Most of the time, 9 times out of 10, in fact 99 of 100, people will say they've mentally tired their dog. The dog is now mentally tired, or they've supported their mind, or whatever that might be. For me, what you are doing is you are providing emotional contentment for that flow of energy to ground back to planet Earth. So the vital life force flow is being calmed and nourished when they are practicing enrichment. So for me, that's why enrichment works. It's got nothing to do with their mind. You get a kid to do homework before bed and they won't sleep as well. Activating the mind it's like so last season, everyone. we pay to go on retreats to quieten our mind. We don't need our dog to think more. We need to understand how they're really acting in life, and we need to take on board that as well and live from the heart more ourselves. Okay. So that's what I mean by it's not behaviour, it's balance. They're balancing their vital life force flow. The vital life force flow is magnetic by nature. It is partly and mostly made up of emotions, okay? And you can work with that. So they're balancing their emotions. Canine Flow is not instead of, it is the other half of dog training. Okay, they still live with us. We still put them in our world. We still need to teach them to do like clicker stuff or whatever lovely, compassionate way you're teaching them to do things like, where's Cheryl and her scritchy scratchy? I love that. Like the dog's nails are getting too long, so she gets them to scritchy scratchy on a turny thing, whatever it is. You can tell I'm not an actual real dog trainer, but so she does. so she's doing that and it works. So things like that we can still do, of course, but this is the other lens. And I just invite you to put them together, really. If anyone who is already practicing as a dog training and behaviour person, whatever you might call yourselves, you will 10x what you're doing if you start integrating the vital life force flow stuff as well, and the techniques that I've developed over the last 15 years of running these retreats and running the courses. So yeah, are you ready to complete the picture? And then I just want to highlight this beautiful country. This is you can't really see my little pupper. She's kind of hidden down the bottom. Fusa, my soy dog rescue. This is the website, easy to remember. And in the background is Cyprus. Dr. Sam Osmanich, who found the Bosnian pyramids when I was living there, found some in North Cyprus. It's a very powerful place. And I am privileged that I've had it's like I don't think I even just gave you that talk. It's like somebody just comes and does it for me in a way, and it comes through me because it kind of, anyway, I just feel that it's very, when you're very aligned in that way, half time you don't even realize you are. And things happen and you go, wow, that was meant to be. And the further you go down the route of something like Canine Flow work, the more you will find that happen. Where's my Tony? She knows that all too well. Seasoned Canine Flower. So thank you. Thank you for listening.